Hey, Teresa, you're going to introduce today.
Well, here we
Surprise!
go.
Welcome to
Good
Nurturing
morning.
Retrograde season.
Yeah, well, welcome to the show. We're always having so much fun here, Rhonda, Bex, and me. Today is no different, and it's totally going to amaze you guys. So come on in, smell the sage, bring your tea
Mm.
or coffee or whatever you want to bring with you today, and come on and enjoy the sacred space that we all have together. All the guardians and angels and everything are all invited in right now, and we're ready to have such a beautiful, beautiful show because just like I've always shared with you guys about the big, big hearts that dragons have, well, horses do too. And today you're going to walk away with your heart falling so in love with horses more than you ever have again. Rhonda, will you tell us about your guest?
Well, I'm so lucky that I met Kathy this spring, and she lives about an hour north of me, and she found me actually, and we had some Reiki sessions together, and then she told me all about what she was doing, and then she decided to take Reiki with me to help what she was doing. And what she's doing is therapy, using horses for therapy on people. And I will let Kathy Moffatt explain. She's an author. She's into this. She's a wonderful light worker. She's got so many gifts, and you can just feel her energy is so sweet and soft and lovely. And Kathy, why don't you talk about what you were just certified in? And you haven't been certified that long, but it's
Mhm.
sort of like a life path that's really you've been sort of dovetailed right to that life path, right? It's sort of like this is what you want. This is what's coming through for you. So it's just so nice to see you finally get your wish come true. So
Mhm.
tell us about it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me. I was really delighted when I got that message from you. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk about what it is I do because I love talking about it and I'm just passionate about the work with the horses. So um, I'll preface it with I'll talk a little bit about the program that I took and then what it is I do, and then I have a long history with horses too, so that's in the background. But I've just finished a program in what's called a Facilitated Equine Experiential Learning. It's called the Field Program. It's run out of a farm outside of Newmarket, Ontario, which is near Toronto. And I completed the program the end of June of this year. It was a 6-month course, very, very intensive course. And basically what it does is it teaches you how to work with horses and horses' energy to help people uncover emotions. It can simply be, just simple emotions or sometimes, trauma. And what we do is we have people connect with the horses. And then my job is really to facilitate the connection and notice how the horses behave with the people through their body language, through the energy that I feel as well. And then the people feel it too. So then they'll notice things happening within them, and that tends to bring things up. So it's a therapeutic approach. I'm not a therapist, so I can't really call it equine assisted therapy. There are people that practice that are therapists, so psychotherapists that also do this, but I do work with psychotherapists, but it is therapeutic, right? So it's not talk therapy, right? So it's an energy connection, a somatic body connection between the people and the horses. So I came to this. Well, the universe has been dropping me crumbs probably for the past, I would say probably about 4 years. I've been toying with this a little bit, and I had a friend who is working in this field already that works with children at risk. And she just out of the blue, I hadn't even seen her in a couple of years, just said, "Hey, do you want to come watch this work that I'm doing with the horses and the kids?" And I thought, follow my curiosity, which is what I always
Yeah.
do. And I went and visited her at her stable, and I watched her facilitate an activity with a teenage boy, very lots of trauma with this poor young man, and a horse. And I just knew in my heart and in my gut that this was what I was supposed to be doing. I just knew it. And after I watched the session, then my girlfriend and I, we chatted, and she had already taken a different program. There's a lot of different programs out there, but she was embarking on taking this new program, the field program. We started it last November. So I would have seen her in the spring, I guess, of last year. And then I just decided to go and do it. So we went and took it together. So that's what that is all about.
It's quite an intensive course, and you do a lot of work, self-healing first, right, with the horses, and connect with the horses and guides, and everybody thinks that's woo-woo, but I wonder if this all didn't come about with, I know they have been doing therapeutic riding for children with disabilities and adults for years and years, and they noticed that there was a different healing going on as well at the same time, because I know that, I mean, my horse was a stand-in and the kids just loved her, and she just loves kids, and the difference in the kids when they get on a horse is so different, and when they're around children, it's so good. So I'm wondering, this is a different step. This is to heal their emotional side, heal people's emotional side.
That's right. The activities that we do, it's not riding, so people don't, when they come out here, they don't get on horses. The activities are not mounted. The activities are around the horses. Certainly there is some, depending on what you're doing, there is some touching that happens with the horses, but there's no riding. And I know a fair bit about therapeutic riding as well. And there is a lot of biodynamics and stuff that happen with people that have physical disabilities when they sit on a horse, but there's a lot of energetic exchange between a horse and human. And there's a lot of science behind that. So there is that sense of spirit too, but the science behind it is just based on the electromagnetic field that is around the horse's energy centers. And we have it too. So we produce a fair bit of electromagnetic energy ourselves. The biggest deliverer of that energy in humans is in our heart, followed by our gut, and then our brain. And it is the same with horses, although horses live pretty much all in their heart and in their guts. They don't live in their heads. They react to things, fight, flight, or freeze. That's how they react. They don't overthink things. They're not a thinking kind of animal, whereas humans tend to be. So horses can help people get out of their heads and into their bodies by this energetic connection. And when you're around horses, you feel it. And you, Rhonda, have horses. You understand the feeling. Horses' electromagnetic energy extends out a lot bigger around them than humans. Humans, it extends out about 3 meters, and you can measure it with scientific devices. You can measure the electromagnetic field around humans. And this is why you can sense when people are in your space. You don't even have to see them. It's your field that feels it. And you feel that in your heart and in your gut, right? And you talk about things like gut feeling. Well, that's because there are neurons in your gut. So there is science behind that as well. And in your heart, there are actually brain neurons in your heart as well. So you get that feeling and that energetic connection. But the horse, just because their hearts are so much larger than a human heart, and their guts, they're a big animal, right? So their digestive system is quite large. Their electromagnetic energy extends out way beyond ours. And that biologically has been necessary because they live in herds and they're prey animals. So they need to be able to sense things way out in their surroundings because there could be danger there, right? So the mountain lion lurking. So horses feel all of that much further out than we do. And that is the energy that we tap into with the horses because it is so large and it is so big. So that's about the energy around them. And you would know because if you're around them, you inherently feel it, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, Teddy Roosevelt years and years and years ago, before we were born, said there's nothing better for inside of a man than the outside of a horse, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess that was even felt back then. And you can tell, like, they have 4 feet and they've got heartbeats in their feet too. And there's nothing, when you touch a horse, you ground almost immediately, like through them. And it's so nice to just, you know, if you're mad, you go out and brush your horse, and then you're not mad anymore. If you can't figure out what you're doing, you go brush your horse, and then everything settles down.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to ride them. You just groom them and be around them, and everything
Yeah.
just nice out. And I can understand why. I'm not sure. Is that part of the reason women are so drawn to them? I mean, little girls are more drawn. I mean, there are men and lots of young men that are drawn to them, but it really seems to be a women thing. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I like.
That's very true. So if we think about the yin and the yang energy, right? Horses are basically the feminine. So they're yin. If you look at characteristics of the feminine, the divine feminine, horses embody that, whether they are male or female. And so it makes a lot of sense why women are drawn to that. Horses don't live in the yang side very much. So that would explain, that. But there are, but men that are in touch, we all have both, right? We all have feminine and masculine qualities. And so the men that I know that they're men that do this kind of work, or just men that I know that are involved with horses, that are really connected with horses, they're very much in touch with their yin energy. Yang energy, horses don't like horses. If somebody comes up to say, work with the horse, and they're full of this buzzy, dominant, in your head energy, the horses, they sense it and they'll tell them, right? So they won't come near them. It's very interesting to watch people with the horses. One of the first activities I do when a client comes out, it's an activity called Meet the Herd. And so there are 9 horses on the property. And normally I have people, if they're comfortable, meet the herd in the horse's environment. So they go out and they walk amongst the herd, and they do it in silence, and they can't touch the horses when they do this. And then I follow behind and I watch the reaction of the individual horses to the person. They too are guided to pay attention to how they are feeling and what they notice. So and there's no wrong answer. I say, well, notice whatever it is you might feel in your body. Where do you feel it in your body? Or notice things like, what color is the horse? How old do you think the horse is? What the gender is? So they go out and do that, and they have a little notebook they take with them, and then I follow, and then I watch what happens, and then I make notes, and it's fascinating to watch the reaction with people. And every person is different, and all the horses are different too, right? So they all have their own intrinsic, I would call it normal behavior, just their kind of, I'm kind of out here kind of behavior, how their normal reactions. And then there are things that are out of the ordinary that happens when people walk out. And it's fascinating to watch. And so people that come in with that, talk about that strong yang energy, it's a lot of times the horses just walk away. They'll flick a tail. There's all sorts of body language things that I'm trained to notice. And then we go back to the barn after we've done that, and then we talk about the experience, and that is very revealing as well. Then I take people back out after they understand a little bit about that, and I talk to people about the energy and the energy fields around them, and we do a couple of little things with dowsing rods that tests energy, and we use pendulums as well, which will show energy so people can understand the energy they have. And then I guide them to get out of their heads and more into their bodies. And then we'll do an activity with a horse one-on-one. And usually the horses pick the human. It's kind of funny. The horse will step up. Okay, you're the one that wants to work with this human. Or sometimes the person's drawn to a specific horse, and then they do an activity with that horse and try very much to get it connected to the horse and get out of their heads. And that is a fascinating activity to watch, just one-on-one, as to how the horses, react to that, and some of the emotions that come up. And sometimes people just start to cry because they get this kind of a release, right? And horses, they don't judge and they don't lie. So anything that you feel that's coming up, the horse holds space for you. It's really quite amazing to watch. And I've yet to have an experience where somebody has not felt something. There's always various degrees, but people usually have a pretty profound experience, with the initial visits.
It's pretty cool to watch. Yeah, I've done some things sort of like that with my Reiki and horses and riders, but it's usually a connection just between the horse and rider. They're already their partner and sort of something to just connect their hearts. And to see the horses licking and chewing and going their head going down, and the people, there's usually a release of emotions. At least I've seen that too, and it's amazing to watch. But this is such a different thing. This is a different type of connection that you're like getting two strangers together and having the horse mirror that person, so you can figure out that, just kind of quickly go to the core of what they need.
Right. They're like a biofeedback mechanism, really. Like they're like a big sensor. So they feel everything. And if you think about it, I mean, a horse will feel a tiny little fly on its skin, right? So they're incredibly sensitive. And so they feel what's going on in people. And if people are being incongruent, the horses sense that too. Horses want you to be in the emotional state that you're in. So if say I, walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Lots of people say fine, but then inside they're not fine, right? They're just saying it.
Fine.
A lot of humans will recognize that because if we're energetically connected with people, we recognize that. But horses always recognize that, and they'll just, that something's not right here. And with the connection back and forth with the horse and the human, invariably the congruency comes up. And I have lots of different activities I do with horses that illustrate that, for people. And so when I'm running sessions, I will pay attention to that. Like in a first session, we do a heart connection, which is it's a bit of a meditation with the horse, which gets you into your heart space and where you can actually physically feel the horse, and the horse feels you. And I watch that, and you can tell when the horse is connected to the human because they drop their head, their eyes get soft, they lick and chew, and they feel that connection. And then the human feels that too, in various degrees. More sensitive people, that are more open, feel it more, but everybody tends to feel that. And once you can connect people that way and have them feel that, then you can use that to uncover other things, that are going on with people, and they will bring that, to me. So they'll say, I'll ask them, okay, so we want, what is your heart's desire at this specific moment? Tell that to the horse, and then go and have an interaction with the horse. And that is amazing to watch too, because by verbalizing what your intention is, you put that into it's not so much that it's in your voice, it's energetically in your body, and the horses feel that, and then they guide the people. It's very it's incredibly profound, actually. But to understand it, you have to experience it, right? And we're talking about it, and some people might be thinking, "Oh, you got to experience it, right? You got to come in and feel it." Yeah.
So you work with people at, like, your typical, what's your ideal client right now? Who like, sort of, who are you targeting yourself? Who do you feel drawn to help the most, or what do you think your specialty is?
Yeah, like for me, I work with adults. I don't work with children. I'll tell a little bit about that in a minute. But so adults, I'm really drawn to work with women. Women have unique traumas, so I'm very drawn to women. And I'm drawn to people that have issues with substance abuse, alcoholism, or families. Families, say parents that have addicted children, or family members around substance abuse, because I have a lot of personal experience with that. So, and in actual fact, that's the reason I'm doing the work. It's my own personal things that have happened to me in my life that I believe happened for a reason. That trauma happened for a reason. And what am I supposed to do with that? And what I'm supposed to do with that is to help people with that. And how do I do that? Is I partner with the horses to do that, because it's a body experience. You know, you could go off and decide you're going to become a psychotherapist, right? And do talk therapy, which is fabulous. This actually, the work I do complements that very well. But I have this connection with horses. I always have my entire life. And that's what I meant to do. So I'm drawn to that. And I've had that verified by other people, energy people that I've met with, who have told me that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I know it's
just
true.
laughing because the orb and behind your
Did you
head.
see that?
I
Yeah.
saw it too.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it
gosh.
just when you were just talking about it, the orb, just a beautiful bright orb just flew up behind you.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So I
So-
believe, yeah.
Yeah, I know it, and I know it in my heart and in my gut. It's not in your brain, you know. So
Yeah, and I can see there's a lot of adult children of people that were addicts or
Right.
alcoholics that
That's
they
right.
suffer a lot of trauma too.
It's very
that-
traumatic. Yeah. So I mean, to me, you have to do this work. You've got to be authentic, and you have to open your own heart, right? And so for me, I have a son who's a meth addict, and he's homeless, and he lives on the street. He's 20. He'll be 29 in November, and my other son has issues too. So he's 30. My boys were adopted at 3 and 18 months out of foster care. That's how we adopted our children. I had cervical cancer prior to that. And so we adopted. And there's a long story about that. I'm actually writing a book about it. But in any event, so my youngest son fell off the rails when he was about 14. And up to that point, normal childhood. But how do you know? If it's what's normal, everyone's normal is different, right? To me, it was pretty normal childhood. And then the teenage years, well, teenagers, they lose their minds. Well, he really lost his mind, you know, so. And I had and both of them, different degrees. The youngest, it was far worse. Incarceration, drugs, violence, you name it. It was horrendous. It was almost 12 years of this. And and as a parent of a drug addict, and I hate to use that term, it's, you know, somebody with a substance abuse problem, because my son isn't the addict. The addict has got a hold of him, right? He's possessed by his addiction. But that came to him through probably trauma at birth, right?
Yeah.
The whole circumstances behind the adoption. So all of that happened. And as a parent, it's very difficult to deal with that and get support for it. And when you live in a small community, there's a lot of judgment too. So not only are you trying to manage that yourself, trying to be a parent and help your child, and as mothers, you know, we want to surround our children with big fuzzy pink blankets and protect them. And I tried, but what I was really doing was enabling, right? And that was the problem. And then there was the judgment piece in a small community, people thinking, well, kind of parents are you if your child is like this. So we had to deal with that too. It was awful. And but I did come to a point where I couldn't manage it anymore, and I ended up going to see a therapist just to get some help. And that's when I started to turn the corner, and that's when things started to open up gradually. When I did that, and then just following. I started doing, well, I did a lot of energy. I took up meditation. I took up yoga. I did all of these things. And then all of a sudden I was becoming very healthy in my head. And then I discovered the equine assisted learning and the therapy type work. And it was one of these things, like it just hit me in the head like a ton of bricks, right? It's like, you can help people. There's a reason in this lifetime that this is your journey, and what is your purpose? And I found my purpose, and that's what brought me to the horses was all of that. And I can relate to that, and I can help other people that are, involved in that, because I understand what it's like. So those are the people I'm drawn to. But everybody comes to me. So, sometimes people, and everybody's got things you can work on. So we all have things. It doesn't have to be.
We don't get through this life without our slings and arrows and everything
of
else.
course, it
The
doesn't
wound.
have to be some deep-seated horrible trauma. Although horses help incredibly with that. It could just be buried emotions.
Or grief.
We don't, as human beings, we don't deal with emotions very well, and there's no such thing as a bad emotion. Emotions are messages from your body, and horses, they don't hold on to their emotions. they go in, oh, I've got to run this way because something's chasing me. They run, they get out of the way, it's over, right? With humans, we fixate on things and we bury emotions, particularly things like fear, guilt, shame. We shove that into our bodies, and the stuff is energetically there and it's physically there. And horses, because they are so authentic within themselves, when they hold space for humans, these things tend to come up. They just start to bubble up. And so we guide people through flowing through the emotions with the horses. It could, and it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be, PTSD. I had a client, a young mother who was starting a new business, who wanted some guidance around that. And so there's a bit of life coaching that can happen too with the horses as well. And, but she was having a hard time finding joy. And I said, well, why is that? And she, young kids, tried to start a new business, just things are busy. So I put her in the round pen with a horse, and I said, well, so what is your intention? She said, I want to feel joy. And when you say that and you put that in your body, she immediately was trying to feel the joy. The horse understood that she wanted a joyful experience. And so what she did is she started to walk around, and it was beautiful. The horse was just following her everywhere and nudging her gently. And then she starts to giggle and felt happy. And it was probably lasted maybe 10 minutes of this kind of back and forth. And I could feel like a cloud had lifted off her, just doing that, just wanting to feel joy. And when we got out, then we always debrief. And then I said, well, how was that for you? And she explained that it felt really good. And she said, I felt the joy, that I had as a child. So then I think we all have to remember things that were joyful to us as children. I try to get people to think about what were you happy when you were 6? Because that's when we as humans aren't conditioned to be in our minds. Kids are in their bodies. Kids are ultimately super authentic, right? So I think I got lost on a tangent there. So she says to me, so I asked her about, what did you enjoy to do? And she says, well, she used to dance and she used to play violin. And I said, oh, what's preventing you from doing that now? And the look on her face was like, well, nothing. Well, then
she needed the permission.
Right. Just do it. I said, go back in the ring with the horse. And she was very involved in dance for many years, from as a young child up until she was a teenager. Go back into the ring and just do some pirouettes and be joyful, So you're releasing joy. So those kind of experiences, happen. And and then, to help her with her business. So people will typically come. Usually I recommend 3 sessions or maybe 4, depends on what you're working on. But she was really working on this business. And so I do an activity, which is a goal-based activity where you set what your goal is. So her goal was a specific launching of this specific business. And then I say, okay, well, what are your obstacles? You pick 2 or 3 obstacles and we write them down on a whiteboard or an easel out where we're out with the horses. We write it down, and then we put obstacles inside the round pen that represent, one is the goal, and then other things like balls or something to walk over or cones, and we put those in the ring, and those are the obstacles. And then what you do is you tell the horse what each physical obstacle represents. So say my obstacle is money. So I want to start a new business. I need money. So one of the obstacles is money. And maybe the other is, I don't know, to find office space. I'm just giving an example. And so then you tell the horse and you point to the obstacles and you articulate to the horse, these are the obstacles and that is my goal. And then you put them in the round pen with the horse. And in this case, the horse has a halter on a lead. And so you lead the horse around the obstacles and the goal. And then I watch the body language of the horse and how the person is feeling. And it is amazing what the horses tell them about, is this really an obstacle? Maybe it's not, and you basically, you instruct them, you either, some obstacles you go through, some of the obstacles you walk the horse over, some you go around. And it's interesting to watch. And people think, well, oh, that's kind of, we like to use the word woo-woo. Well, yes and no, because when you articulate it and point it, you're energetically putting it in your body and the horse feels it. And when you're at that, that's what you're thinking about and energetically in your body. And you're not in your head when you're doing this kind of stuff because you're focused on leading the horse around, right? So you can't really be thinking about that. You're just doing. And then you get these messages. And I watch the body language of the horse and make notes of that. And then the people will notice things too because they'll feel it as well. And then we debrief after that. So and you can use that for all sorts of things. And that's just an example of one. There's all sorts of different things that I do. Awesome. I have an activity for grief and bereavement for people that have, either could be grief around anything, but bereavement around the loss of a person. We have activities around that, activities around being a victim and abuse. And yeah, all sorts of different activities where we set the stage with the horse and the people to get them really energetically connected in your body, out of your head. What are you feeling? What is your body telling you? And people come up with their own answers. I don't tell them. I just notice. I notice this. I notice that. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. And the other interesting thing too, which is as an aside to this, is that horses also will energetically feel illness in a human, or where something's being healed. And so I had a woman come out to me in the summer, and I watched her with that Meet the Herd activity, and I watched the horses around her. So I have 9, but there 2 of them are minis. Minis I don't tend to work with in that kind of activity. So she was out amongst the 7, and of the 7 horses, 5 of them kept putting their muzzle to her belly. And I noticed that, as did she, right? So when we debriefed about that, and I said that to her, I said, I noticed that the horses were all, at your belly. And she said, yeah, I had a hysterectomy 5 weeks ago. So the horses were feeling the energy, probably of your body healing, right? In that case, because there is energy. Everything's energy. I mean, everything is energy, because everything is made out of living things, right? The table, rocks, crystals, of course, everything, plastic. It comes from oil, which is dead plant material. Everything has energy, and you feel that. And healing and disease has energy, and the horse was sensing that. They can sense pregnancy. We had that experience too, where a woman, she hadn't even told anybody that she was expecting, and the same kind of thing was happening with her, and the horse was right at her womb space. And then she said, oh, and she told, I wasn't the facilitator. This was another facilitator friend of mine. And she told her, oh my God, she says, you're the first person I've told, because the horse felt it. What are they feeling? They're feeling the energy, because they're so sensitive. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. It's very cool. So that happens too. So when I'm involved in that, if I think it's a healing or an illness thing, I'll just say, I notice. I don't suggest it's something that it might not be. I just notice. Yeah. So that that happens as well.
Nancy Louise says this is like working with the dolphins. Well, yeah, but it's a lot easier
Yeah,
to
for
find
sure.
horses. A lot easier to find fields.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know much about dolphins, but they're highly intelligent. I would expect, yeah. I mean, they're a mammal. So mammals, I mean, other sentient beings have this capacity too, but mammals in particular, because we're warm-blooded, it's a different energetic connection, and dolphins are mammals, right? So that would make sense. I bet you whales too, right? Dogs we know as well. Dogs do a lot of it with energy too, but a lot of it's with scent. It's different with dogs, but dogs have very sensitive noses, and they can sniff out things. So yeah, it's quite
Cats
the same way too. Yeah.
Cats are big healers. I know that if I get a headache and I'm laying on the couch, my cat will come over, lay on me, and start purring. And she's not always so super cuddly, but anytime I'm not feeling well, she shows up. She just knows.
Wow.
That's the sound therapy.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and horses just and I mean, human beings have been attached to horses since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, I think we need each other. I mean, not everyone's involved with horses, but if you look back thousands of years, people lived with horses. Cultures all over the world, there were always horses.
Make or break for this country still. You know?
That's right. And yeah, so they have a collective consciousness as well, like in a herd, because part of it's because of the energy, right? So their energy bubble on a horse can be, well, let's just say it's 20 meters from, so their big 20-meter bubble is connected to the horse over here 20 meters away, and then they're all connected together, which is why you can have a horse at the other end of a field see something, you know, in the woods, and the horse way over on the other side knows too, right? Because their energy, they communicate through their energy, and that's for them. They need that for survival, and so they have this consciousness collectively, and they have a collective consciousness even when they're not physically attached to other horses. So I have a one horse in my barn who is connected to two horses that are outside of Barrie.
Wow.
And they're connected. And we've proven it. It's very cool, right? So, yeah, and they learn things from each other because of this kind of connection. There's actually been a fair bit of research on this too. I'm trying to think the name of the writer. I think it's Rupert Sheldrake actually is the author, who's written a lot about collective consciousness of species all over the world. Not to mention the connection with their ancestors too. Just like we're connected with our ancestors, horses are too. Yeah.
So that was interesting because Nancy says she has to do an Akashic reading on a horse, which is interesting that they have had different lives as well, like us.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting to think of how many lives your horses have had.
Yeah.
And what they learned along the way, or how they're connected to their ancestor horses.
That's right.
They're magical beings for sure.
Oh, they really are. They really are. And when I took my training, so I mentioned at the beginning there are different places that run this kind of training. The difference between the program I took and a lot of the other ones is we do work a lot with emotions. So there's a fair bit of study of emotions and how to move through emotions and what emotions mean, because a lot of that comes up with the work, right? So all of a sudden somebody is dealing with anger. And so how do we move through that? So we do get involved in that. And a lot of the other programs don't. It's more just I notice, which is part of what we do, but there is the emotional component too. And the other thing is that the person that runs the program, he practices shaman. He wouldn't call himself a shaman, but he practices shamanic teachings. He's trained in that, mostly by I think the Toltec tradition, which is South American tradition. And so part of our training we do use and work with some of these shamanic teachings around the horses as well, which helps us tap into the horse ancestors, which come up with that, helps us create sacred space, helps us clear energy. So we're given a lot of this type of teaching with the horses as well. We experienced, we went on a couple of drumming journeys, which were mind-blowing. If you've never done that, I highly recommend it, which reveal so many things to you. There's a sweat lodge on the property. We did a sweat, which was very revealing too. So we, as practitioners, try ourselves to get into that kind of a space too, so that we become more open to all the other energy around us. So we can tap into that, as well. And I ensure before I have people come, and not everyone knows that I do this, but I do prepare the space, make it a sacred space, clear the energy, using crystals or smudging or that kind of thing, have my intention, call in whoever it is that wants to come in to help. And sometimes it's horses that do. And I had an interesting experience when I was at the facility on a drumming journey where you're guided. It's like a guided meditation, but it kind of gets you out of your body. I felt I was out of my body. And it takes you to a place that's supposed to be your power place. So you visualize. I'm very visual. So I saw it. Some people hear it. Some people, it's more, it's supposed to be clairvoyant. It's more, a clairaudience, the kind of auditory, or sometimes it's just sensing. But me, I tend to see things. And so I'm there and I'm like, oh, I'm at Lake Louise, which was interesting. I've been there many, many times. It's a very powerful place for me. I've drawn there. I've hiked around that lake so many times, and it brought me there. And when I was there, and I'm like, oh, this is familiar. Am I dreaming? What's going on here? And then all of a sudden, a horse appears, a big black horse. And I have black horses, but it wasn't one of my horses. And I don't know if any of you have been there, but you can get a picture of it. The lake kind of moves like this, and then there's trees and mountains all around it. And at the top of the mountains, I saw horses up there. And then I saw indigenous people up there, which would make sense that there would have been indigenous ancestors that had been there. And it was quite fascinating. And this black horse guided me up there to just see. I just saw. Did I get messages? Maybe not so much messages. I just saw. And when I came out of it, and we all were sharing what was going on. One of the women in the program with us went to the exact same place.
Oh, wow.
She'd never been there, and she didn't know what it was. So I didn't say that it was Lake. I was describing it, and then I was going to say that it was Lake Louise, and it brought her to the same place, which was like, oh wow, that was amazing.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That was very cool. And then, but the black horse, I kept thinking about the black horse. And so then the next day I get up, we stayed at this facility when we were doing our in-course training. And there was a book there that had pictures of all of the horses that they work with, but all of the horses they work with in the past. A lot of these horses have passed away. And I'm flipping through the book, and all of a sudden there's the black horse. I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it now. I see the black horse. Oh my God, that was the horse. The horse that had passed away and was attached to that property. Actually, I'm not sure if he's buried on the property or not. There's actually a monument to him on the property. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? And then I had in my mind, there were a couple of horses that I saw kind of up at the top of the lake some of them I couldn't really make out what they were, but there were two of them. One of them was a gray horse, and another one was kind of an Appaloosa type horse. And don't I flip the page of the book? And I hadn't seen this book before. The other two horses were there too.
Oh my gosh.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Which was
It gives me the goosebumps now.
I
it's
love
like,
that.
okay, universe. So then it's like, oh, okay, wow. How do you tap into that? So what I do is the horse's name, the black horse, is the one I'm really attached to. I'm really drawn to black horses. I call him in. Anytime I'm doing sessions with people, I call him in. He comes in. He's there. He's just there. Along with,
So you have a horse guide too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's
Awesome.
very cool. Yeah, it's very cool. So that's the spirit side of it. That comes in, right? And that works around what's happening too within the round pen. So a lot of the work is done when I'm doing one-on-ones with people with a one horse. They have a horse in a round pen. The round pen is actually set up as a medicine wheel, a shamanic medicine wheel.
Neat.
And so I have it marked, the different colors of the wheel, the red, the black, the white, and the yellow at the different directions. And where horses stand in the wheel has messages too, if you study the meanings of the different directions
Right.
through indigenous medicine wheels. That gives us really interesting information too. Probably the most profound thing that happened is I had a woman that came, and I have these two big black horses. So my black mare was in the round pen with this woman who had significant trauma in her life, like abuse, significant trauma. I didn't know all the detail, but she kind of shared a little bit, and she's in with the horse. So she's in with this mare, and this mare is like holding space. Just, I have you. Wouldn't leave her. Like just. And in that activity, you can touch the horse, and you could just tell by the breathing and the whole bit. My other black horse was outside the round pen. And the reason I did that is that he gets a little upset if I take her away. And I did it more just because I didn't want horses making a lot of noise. I just wanted him to be relaxed himself. So while she was in there with the mare, he was circling around the round pen. And my sense was he was trying to keep the energy in the space. And then he stopped to the north, and then he stood in the north, and then he just turned his bum into the round pen. So when horses turn their bums to you, it can mean two things. One, if it's quick and their ears are back, they might kick you. It doesn't happen here, but that can be a sign, right? But horses have chakras like we do, and their root chakra is at the tip of their tail. And when a horse turns its root chakra to you, the meaning of that is just sending you grounding and loving energy. And he stood there in the north and just stood, and with his bum there, and just stood there after he circled. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. Yeah. So that kind of stuff happens too. Now the woman inside didn't notice that, but you could feel that he was helping keep the energy in there. And yeah, it was really so these beautiful things happen too. And which is why I love the work so much.
That's pretty amazing. Kathy, so tell people how they can get in touch with you and where they can find you. I know maybe people down in Florida might not fly right up here, but there'll be people across Ontario and Canada, and people in northern New York and northern states that may come up to see you. So
so I have you can contact me via email. I think that's probably will be in the show notes, I would think, or do you want me to give that to you?
No, it's in the show notes, I think.
Yeah. So email. I have a website. It's a long website. It's Rito Breeze Stables and Wellness Center.com. So you can contact me, through the website. So those are probably, the best two ways. I'm on all social media, so you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. I do post stuff on social media if you want to get a sense of a little bit about me and the kind of things I'm doing. But the website's a good place to go to get a bit of an idea of the work. I also do workshops. I'm actually doing a workshop on the 25th of September. It's for women in transition. It's geared towards women that are potentially retiring or have made transitions in their lives, maybe a new job. A lot of people had to make changes because of COVID. And I'm a woman who, I made a transition from corporate life into this work. And it was tough. And I had an energy person tell me that this is something that I should do because I could be relatable on how you go from this identity of this life into something else. And so I have a workshop coming up with that, and the horses are going to be involved in doing activities around that. So they're workshops as well. People are interested in that. And I publish all that stuff on social media and on my website.
Yeah. And Kathy has a lovely farm and a lovely space, and it's beautiful where you live, and your houses, everything's gorgeous out there. So your horses are gorgeous too. So yeah, it's so nice to meet you, and so thank you so much. But Bex has some questions for you.
Yeah.
I do. Just real quick before we get to them, though, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing these stories, because even though I don't have much experience with horses, I could feel so much of what you were talking about. And it's just beautiful. And I know my energy was a little crazy at the beginning of the show, and it's completely settled down and softened. And just feeling so much love from the experiences you shared. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
beautiful. I love it so much. That's awesome. What you do is so cool. Like, that's awesome. Okay, so the 3 questions. The first question is, if you had to choose a song to be the theme song of your life, what would that be?
Oh, Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, but sung by Katie Lang. I like her version.
I like your version.
Yes, I love that song. Yeah.
So good. Okay, second question. What's your favorite crystal that you're working with right now?
Right now, it's labradorite. Actually, I have a piece right here.
Lovely.
A lovely
That's
piece.
a
Actually,
lovely
my necklaces as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been tapping a lot more into intuition and some psychic things. So I'm working with that more on a, my own personal level. Yeah, I love it, and it's so. I just love the feel of it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just beautiful.
I love when you get flash hits, and it's just like so brilliant. Beautiful.
Oh yes,
it's like having the aurora borealis in your hand.
Is.
That's right. It's just amazing. Yeah.
That's why I wear mine all the time, because I never want to take it off.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Third question. Have you ever experienced extra dimensional intelligence, meaning UFOs, visitations, or things like that?
I'm not sure. So certainly no visitation that I'm aware of. I do stare at the sky a lot. I've always loved the stars, and I have at times looked up and thought, that's not a satellite, that's not a star, that's not a planet. What is that? And I get a sense it's something like that. Not sure. You know what? If you get a sense of it, it probably is. That's what my intuition says. But no real visitations by.
Except for the orbs that fly through your house when we're talking to you.
Well, yeah, the orbs. Yeah, there's stuff in the house for sure. Yes.
I just love that it showed up when you were so excited. It just showed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of energetic things going on in the house. Not totally sure at this point who or what, but I do feel it in around the property too. There's a lot of energy around here. Yeah, in the building that I use for the yoga studio is upstairs, and so there's a lot of energy stuff that goes on because yoga's practiced there, right? Mm-hmm. And but the building is a timber frame building made out of big pine beams, which has a beautiful energy about it too. So there's stuff attached to that, and there certainly are things around.
Very
so
cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how the horses, they obviously would let you know if they saw something or heard something. So
yeah, they do, like running around typically, or just standing and woo. I've noticed it actually. I've had, not so much with horses, but I have 2 dogs, and I have one dog that a couple of times would be standing in a corner just staring at the ceiling, and just there's nothing. What's there? And it's not like there's a mouse in the attic or anything like that. I've had that in the house, but yeah, it'd be with the horses for sure. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, oh, where are you going? What's going on over there when there's nothing over there? But yeah.
That's
for sure. Cool. They feel everything. Like they're just so incredibly sensitive.
For sure, they do, and they see things we don't. And you're
That's
going
right.
what are you? Yeah, they'll be all looking off. And sometimes it's like you say, they have such good energy. They like such good in touch with their energy that they can feel another animal's energy that we can't even see.
Well, that's right. They feel the energy. And also from a visual point of view, I mean, horses see 340 degrees. Their eyes are like, our eyes are forward. Horses' eyes are on the side of their head. So they have a wide field of view as well. So they can't see directly behind themselves. That's a blind spot, or right here. They can't see like right there, but everywhere else. So they have an incredible field of vision, and that coupled with the energy they feel, makes them, they notice stuff for sure.
That's a really interesting point, because I wonder if it's like us, like when we see things in the peripheral, like see through, I'm wondering, because they have such good peripheral vision, if they can see into those other dimensions. You know what I mean?
They may very well be able to. Yeah.
And better have a better clarity that way. Be more able to see that.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting point.
It would make sense that they could see way more than we can.
Yeah.
It definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
So cool.
Can't wait to come up and visit you and see what's going on at your place.
Yes.
I will do that.
Yes. You're always welcome.
Thank you. So, Bex, you have one last.
Me too. I have the winner of last week's Shirt Out who won the Egyptian Soul Spa meditation, and that is Shirley Ryan. Congratulations. And you guys, right now we're even doing comments, so feel free to comment because we just appreciate your interaction. We appreciate you guys being here with us every week, and we want to be able to give you something, just to say a thank you. So you comment or you share, whatever you're doing, keep it up, and you could have a chance to win the Egyptian Soul Spa meditation.
And Kathy wants to, Nancy wants to thank you, Kathy, for preparing her for upcoming horsey conversations. So,
awesome. Wonderful, Nancy. We'll enjoy that.
Yeah, so it'll be great. Well, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. And anything else, Teresa, before we go?
No, I can't think of anything. I mean, I will say I did grow up with horses, but none of them were my own. I lived across the street from a house place, and a couple of blocks there was a miniature for the minis, a farm for them that was there. And I grew up, me and my dad, like once a month or so, we would go rent horses and ride them down at the river bottom, and learning what you're talking about. And I can go back over those experiences and see the energy now, whereas I didn't think about it before. And it's neat revisiting. And one time they have a pin where you pick out your horses. And one time there was like a real young one, like a newborn there. And it came over and sat on my lap. I was sitting right by the fence, or you know how the fences are. And it came over and it sat in my lap that day. So now I'm thinking, oh my God, it must have been healing me or something.
Well, if you have really beautiful energy, and I know you do, they're attracted to it too.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
so that's the other interesting thing. When I watch people interact, the people that have really beautiful energy, the horses are like, hey, I want to get to know you. And they come right up, right?
Ah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's very cool.
That's sweet. Oh. Well, now you make me want to go out and say hello to my horses. So I will go out and talk to my horse. Well, I've already said
Send
hello
our
this
love,
morning.
Rhonda.
I will. Thanks, Kathy.
Very
And
welcome.
We'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
Namaste.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.